It was 11:15 on a Thursday night. Angela Hammond stood at a payphone outside a grocery store in Clinton, Missouri. She was 20 years old, 4 months pregnant, and talking to the man she was going to marry. She told him about a truck that had been circling the block, an old green pickup. It had a painting of a fish on the back window. The man inside it was filthy. He wore overalls and glasses and a long, unkempt beard. He parked near the phone booth. He pretended to use the phone next to hers. Then he got back in his truck and shone a flashlight around like he was looking for something. A few minutes later, Rob heard Angela scream, and then the line went dead. Angela Marie Hammond was born on February 9, 1971, in Clinton, Missouri. Everyone called her Angie. She was outgoing, warm, the kind of person who made friends without trying. She stood just under 5 feet tall with brown hair, brown eyes, and a smile that could fill a room. Clinton is a small farming town about 70 miles southeast of Kansas City, the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked, where everyone knows everyone. Angie had grown up there, gone to school there, and fallen in love there. Her fiancé was Rob Schaefer, a former high school athlete. When Rob gave Angie a diamond ring, he made a promise. He would always take care of her. They were planning their future. They were expecting a baby. Everything was falling into place. And then came the night of April 4th, 1991. That Thursday, Angie and Rob had spent the evening at a barbecue with friends. Afterward, Angie dropped Rob off at his house around 10 o'clock. Rob needed to stay home and watch his younger brother until his mother got back. They made a plan. Angie would call him later, and as soon as his mom returned, he'd meet her back in town. It was a simple plan, one they'd done many times before. Clinton was safe. Nothing ever happened in Clinton. About an hour later, just after 11, Angie drove to the center of town and parked outside the Food Barn grocery store. There were 2 payphones near the entrance. She picked up one and dialed Rob's number. He answered. They started talking. Neither of them knew that in the next few minutes, everything would change forever. During their conversation, Angie mentioned a truck, a green pickup, an older model, maybe late 1960s or early 1970s. It had been circling the block while she was on the phone. She described a large decal on the back window, a fish leaping out of the water. The truck eventually stopped near the payphones. A man got out. Angie described him to Rob as she watched. He was filthy. He had a beard, glasses, and wore overalls. He walked up to the second payphone, the one right next to Angie, and picked up the receiver. He didn't make a call. He just stood there for a moment, then hung up and walked back to his truck. He climbed in but didn't leave. Instead, he turned on a flashlight and started looking around inside the cab like he'd lost something. It was strange, but at first it didn't feel dangerous. Rob told Angie to ask the man if he needed to use her phone. Maybe his was broken. Angie called out to him. The man replied, no, he'd try again in a minute. So they kept talking. About the baby, about their plans, about nothing in particular. And then, mid-sentence, Rob heard something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. A scream. Angie was screaming. And then, silence. The phone went dead. Rob didn't think. He dropped the phone, didn't even hang it up, and ran out of the house. He got in his car and drove toward the payphones, 7 blocks away. His mind was racing. The streets were dark. As he sped through downtown, a pickup truck flew past him going the other direction. And then he heard it. A voice, screaming from the passenger window. Robbie! Someone had yelled his name. That's how he knew. That was Angie. She was in that truck. Rob slammed on the brakes, threw his car into reverse, and spun around. He floored it. He chased the green pickup through the streets of Clinton, past the edge of town, and onto the dark county roads beyond. He pushed his car as hard as it could go. For 2 miles, Rob stayed behind the truck. He could see the taillights ahead. He could hear his engine straining, but when he had thrown the car into reverse to turn around, the sudden jolt had destroyed his transmission. And now, as he made a right turn following the truck onto a dirt road, the car began to die. The engine sputtered. The wheels slowed. Rob watched the brake lights of the pickup disappear into a cloud of dust. And then, nothing. Silence. Darkness. His car was dead. The woman he loved was gone. Rob stood alone on a gravel road in the middle of the night in rural Missouri, with no phone, no way to move, and no idea where Angela had been taken. A passing driver picked him up and took him to the police station. He arrived about 15 minutes after the abduction. He told them everything. The truck, the man, the fish decal, the scream. But it was already too late. Within hours, a massive search was underway. Angie's car was found right where she'd left it, at the payphones outside the food barn. The phone receiver was still dangling. Officers searched the surrounding area, the fields, the roadsides, the ditches. Nothing. The Missouri State Highway Patrol launched a statewide hunt for the green Ford pickup with the fish decal on the back window. They checked hundreds of trucks matching the description. Every single one was ruled out. There were no witnesses to the abduction itself. No one had seen Angela get taken. And in the absence of evidence, investigators turned to the only person who had been there, the person who claimed to have heard it all. Rob Schaefer. Detectives looked at him hard. When you can't find the monster, sometimes you start looking at the people closest to the victim. Rob's story was extraordinary. A phone call, a scream, a chase through the night, a broken transmission. It sounded almost too dramatic, too cinematic. Some investigators wondered if it was too convenient. But within a week, Rob Schaefer was cleared. He passed a polygraph test. His car was found exactly where he said it had broken down, the transmission destroyed just as he described. Angie's car was at the payphones, confirming her location. And then, crucially, 2 independent witnesses came forward. Both said they had seen the same green pickup truck with the fish decal in the area that night, between 11:30 and 11:45 p.m., right before Angie disappeared. Everything in Rob's account was corroborated. The physical evidence matched. The timeline held. Rob wasn't a suspect. He was a victim, too. A man who had heard his fiancée scream, who had chased her abductor through the dark, and whose car had failed him at the worst possible moment. He would carry that night with him forever. The guilt of not getting there fast enough. The sound of her voice, calling his name from the window of a stranger's truck. As investigators dug deeper, they found a disturbing pattern. Angela's case wasn't isolated. 3 months before her abduction, in January of 1991, a 20-year-old woman named Cheryl Kenny had vanished from near Max Creek, Missouri, about 100 miles from Clinton. Cheryl was last seen at a convenience store. She was never found. And there was a third case, too. Another young woman, abducted under similar circumstances in the same region of west-central Missouri. Authorities began to fear something far worse than a single crime. They feared a serial predator was operating across the rural highways of Missouri. Someone who knew the back roads. Someone who targeted young women alone at night. The cases were linked geographically, temporally, and by the profile of the victims. But no common suspect was ever identified. Serial killer Kenneth McDuff, whose murders spanned from 1966 to 1992, was briefly considered. But he was never officially connected. Half-brothers Jesse Rush and Marvin Cheney, convicted in a related case, were also suspected, but never charged in Angela's disappearance. For 30 years, there were no answers. And then, on the 30th anniversary of Angela's disappearance in April of 2021, investigators revealed a new theory. It centered on a letter, a threatening cut-and-paste ransom-style note that had been sent to a confidential informant involved in a narcotics operation. The letter was postmarked April 4th, 1991. The same day, Angela vanished. It read, in part, "We know who you are. People like you deserve what you get. We know where your foxy daughter is. She will see us soon." The informant's daughter was also named Angela. She lived in Clinton. She was roughly the same age and had a similar appearance to Angela Hammond. Investigators believe the abductors may have been targeting the informant's daughter and grabbed the wrong Angela. A case of mistaken identity. A young woman taken not because of who she was, but because of who she looked like. As of today, this theory has not been confirmed or ruled out. The letter remains one of the most chilling pieces of evidence in the case. And if the theory is true, it means Angela Hammond's abduction was never personal. She was simply in the wrong place, at the wrong time, with the wrong name. Angela Hammond has been missing for over 35 years. She was 20 years old. She was 4 months pregnant. She was engaged to be married. She had called the man she loved from a payphone 7 blocks away. And he heard everything. He heard the truck. He heard her description of the man. He heard her scream. He chased the truck through the night until his car died on a gravel road. And then she was gone. No body has ever been found. No arrest has ever been made. There is still a $16,000 reward for information in this case. If you know anything about the disappearance of Angela Hammond, please contact the Clinton Police Department. Her family has never stopped looking. Rob Schaefer has never stopped remembering. And somewhere in the dark, quiet roads of rural Missouri, the truth is still waiting to be found.